The magazine?
How?
If anyone ever makes fun of you for not being able to completely understand Tenet at once, I want you to tell them that Christopher Nolan took 5 years to figure the screenplay himself. If Nolan takes 5 years for something, you, my friend, are allowed at least a dozen rewatches till you comprehend it. Maybe even more. And I say this with all due respect to the viewer's intellect. In the last few decades, Nolan's cinema has become, in my opinion, a rather cryptic meditation on the conditions that make human life possible, which, in Tenet's case, is time. To fully appreciate Tenet, you would have to unlearn the tenses that grammar classes have drilled into your head. You would have to forsake the coherence of the past, present, and future. You've been asked to flip the hourglass to study the passage of time. Nolan is asking you to roll it. See how the sands of time shift. That seems like a bit of a literary thing to say about a filmmaker who's so obviously intent on playing with the laws of physics. But it is not. It is perhaps the easiest way to talk about Tenet's portrayal of time. Time, we've been taught, flows from past to future, from yesterday to tomorrow, from young to old, from birth to death. Time's movement is forward, we think. But what if it was not? What if there were movements in time, but those movements were not forward? Tenet begins by approaching that question. It shows a CIA agent who's tasked with tracing the source of weapons and bullets that pose a threat to human life. Here's the problem. The bullets are probably coming from a war in the future. And if a bullet from the future can come to destroy the sanctity of both time and human life in the present, what's stopping a nuclear weapon from traveling further back and destroying your past? As you get into the film, you're going to understand why it is Nolan's most expensive cinema yet, production-wise. If you unhinge time as we know it, you're going to have to change a lot because pretty much everything depends on it. And Christopher Nolan might not be a simple man, but he is meticulous. He dedicates himself to creating a world where time shifts uncharacteristically. He makes this world logical, believable, and tangible. You go into the film believing that in time, cause comes before effect. You come out of it questioning if you could differentiate the two at all. That is what I like so much about Nolan. When he says mind-bending, he really does mean it. Someday, I hope to be as scientific-minded as Nolan probably hopes his audience will be. Today is not that day. But in my capacity as a dedicated reader of Isaac Asimov, Michael Crichton, Arthur C. Clarke, and Ray Bradbury, and several other sci-fi writers, I cannot help but see Tenet as a delicious pun on cinema as a medium. Because to play around with the idea of time in a medium that is so obviously dependent on time, that is the most meta you can possibly get. Photography, the very basis of the moving image, is itself a resistance to the passage of time. You freeze a moment in a frame. Every time you hold a photograph, now or in the future, you are essentially holding the past. Cinema too binds the past in a frame. Cinema too plays around with time, as does Nolan. In fact, what I enjoy the most in Nolan cinema as an ordinary viewer is something that is fast disappearing from cinema altogether. A profound playfulness. What if I took time, Nolan says. What if I took time and memory and reality and illusion and dream and consciousness? What if I took them and toyed around with them? In fact, I think that the problem most people have with Nolan cinema is not just understanding it, but accepting it. Because to accept what Tenet seems to say to us, that the future can haunt us just as the past does, to accept this takes a lot of courage. The future can be a ghost too, Tenet says. What difference does it make, the wars of the past and the wars of the future? We do nothing to stop them in either case, and both cost us the same, human life. Where this violence is situated in time is not the central concern. To be able to conserve human life at the face of it, that is the mission. As Neil says in the film,
Time isn't the problem, it's getting out alive that's the problem.